Hey, yo, I'm out here with the new Sony Alpha 1 Mark II. Yeah, you see it. I want y'all to think about this camera as the evolution of the Alpha 1, because the Alpha 1 was already amazing. I mean, it was 50.1 megapixels, 30 frames per second, blackout free. You had 8K 30, 4K 120, and the list goes on and on and on. Well, the problem with the Alpha 1 is a couple years old, it's old hardware, it's starting to show its age. So basically what Sony did with the Alpha 1 Mark II is took everything that it already was and threw all of the newest, latest and greatest technology that they have in it, from even up to the Alpha 9 Mark III. So let's talk about this new Alpha 1 Mark II, and you can make the decision on if this is the right camera for you or not. Let's go. All right, let's talk body and design first. As you probably noticed, this looks just like the freaking A9 Mark III. It's the same body, including the turbo button right there, which we'll talk about that some in a little bit. But it's the same 50.1 megapixel stacked backside illuminated sensor in here, which is crazy fast. This also has Sony's new AI chip in it, just like the newer cameras. We'll get into those benefits in a little bit. But as you see, it looks just like the A9 III. If I go ahead and rotate it to the top, the sun is coming back out. So sorry, the exposure is changing. We got the same dial we had on the original Alpha 1 that controls your burst settings and also your focus modes. We got the new photo and video switch on there and all of your customizable button. On the back of it, we now have the new 4-axis tilty, flippy, rotating freaking screen thing. This is such a welcome addition. So this is the same screen that's on the A9 III and the A7 R5. It can go tabletop or it can go vlog style. You got both of them in one design. We also have an improved EVF. So I remember on the original Alpha 1, sometimes it would drop resolution and stuff like that, depending on what you were doing. Well, it doesn't do that anymore. Now it's 120 frames per second refresh all the time, 9.4 million dots. So it's an amazing EVF. If we take a look at the other side, let me open up all these doors real quick. You got HDMI, you got USB-C with power delivery, you got your headphone, your microphone jack on there, your remote jack, your multi-port, and a faster Ethernet port. I'll put the official speed on the screen because it's much faster than the original Alpha 1. The other good thing is the menu is now up to date with all of Sony's newest cameras. So if I turn this on, hopefully y'all can see this. This is the new menu system from all of Sony's newer cameras. And of course, if you go to the main screen, you can adjust the ISO, shutter speed, all that right from the screen. And you have these easy tabs that you can swipe on and off if you don't want to use them. Overall though, very welcome updates to the Alpha 1 II body. Hey man, I saw a black squirrel earlier while we was out here, and I'm on a hunt for a freaking black squirrel. So before we leave, I gotta find this freaking black squirrel. All right, so let's talk about photography first. This is still, like I said earlier, the same 50.1 megapixel stacked backside illuminated sensor that was in the original Alpha 1 Mark II, which means this camera is still a beast with photography. You can still do 50.1 megapixels, up to 30 frames per second, blackout free, full uncompressed RAW. But there's some very welcome additions in here, starting with the turbo button like we get in the Alpha 9 Mark III. Now, if you've never seen this button, basically it's a quick way for you to jump up to the fastest burst speed available. And I really like this because I don't always want to keep the camera in the highest burst setting, so I can keep it in low, and the only time I get the full 30 frames per second is when I depress this front C5 button, which is fire. I loved it on the Alpha 9 Mark III. I love it on this camera. Now, of course, all your different levels of compression and file sizes are in there. You can still shoot JPEGs and regular JPEG or HE photos up to 422. Maximum shutter speed is still a 32,000th of a second, and I really love the way that the shutter sounds in the Alpha 1 Mark II. It's like a mouse farting. It's crazy. Another major addition is now the Alpha 1 Mark II has pre-capture just like the Alpha 9 Mark III. So basically what happens is when you have pressed the shutter button, it already starts to capture images. You can customize this in the menu, and that way, leading up to the actual shot that you want, in case you happen to miss the shot or something happens, you still got all of those frames before it, which is fire. And now we also have pixel shift in camera. We also now have new focus modes in here that you can customize. You can set up different profiles. So overall, as a photography camera, the Alpha 1 Mark II is still one of the best photography cameras that you can get. The combination of resolution, speed at the same time, in addition to all of these new additions, fire. I told you I was gonna get one of them little black squirrels. We got us one. Now for video, we got all of the new stuff that Sony puts in all of their cameras, and there have been some changes to the core frame rates and capabilities, right? So maximum frame rate is still 8K 30. However, the max bit rate has been bumped up to 520. megabits per second, 422 and 10 bits. So that's really good. I think my biggest qualm with that is if you look at the other major competitors like the R5 Mark II from Canon or the Nikon Z9, those are shooting freaking 8K 60 internal RAW, okay? The A1 Mark II can still do RAW over HDMI, but only up to 8K 30. And I know we, being super snobby right now, but when you talk about spending this much money on a camera and it being a flagship, I would thought that Sony would, want to future-proof it and be competitive with those other cameras in that avenue. Unfortunately, we only got 8K 30. Anyways, 4K 120 is still amazing. It's only a 10% crop. You get full autofocus, S-Log 3. All that stuff is still in there. Amazing freaking quality video in here. And because we got the AI chip in here now, you get auto framing like you do on the ZV-E1. We got USB streaming up to 4K 30. And of course, while you're streaming, you can set it to record to the card at the same time. We got things like S-Cinetone that we didn't have before. User uploadable LUT. You got built-in time-lapse generation, just like you get on all of Sony's newer cameras. Two last things, dual base ISO of 800 and 4000 and S-Log 3 still apply, although Sony doesn't officially announce it. And we now have a 48th and a 96th of a second shutter speeds and video mode, which is a very welcome addition. Overall, this is a really powerful video camera. I know that I talked about it not having 8K 60 RAW internal, but I think for what it is, it's still one of the best out there for video. We're gonna play the auto ISO game again because the freaking sun keep playing with me. Let's talk about autofocus right quick. The Alpha 1 was already great when it came to autofocus, especially coupled with the fact that you got 50.1 megapixels up to 30 frames a second with full AF. It just gets better with the Alpha 1 Mark II because Sony put all of the latest and greatest autofocus technology that they have because of the AI chip into the Alpha 1 Mark II. So now it can do people, animals, insects, birds, planes, freaking trains, like aliens, like all of that stuff is in here now. And the best part is now this can do automatic subject detection, where like if you use the ZV-E1 that I'm using right now, you have to go in there and pick which subject that you want it to recognize. Well, this one will do it automatically now. Now, the good thing about this is when you're using auto subject recognition, you can turn off certain types. So if I know I'm not freaking looking for bugs out here, but I want it to be able to spot aliens and trains, and I can turn bugs off. You get what I'm trying to say? The autofocus is mad sticky. I've used this Alpha 1 Mark II at a lot of my son's sports games, and it's crazy and super low light. The autofocus is still mad sticky. Human pose estimation still works mad crazy. Like it can still spot where the eyes are going to be at based off of where the shoulders and the helmet are turning. The autofocus in this camera is so reliable. It's almost a freaking cheat code. I'm being honest with you. It is so fast and accurate. I don't know how autofocus can get any better than this, to be honest with you. Okay, so let's talk about stabilization because it has been improved on the Alpha 1 Mark II. Now, for reference, stabilization is off right now. Just the Alpha 1 Mark II with the 16 to 35 millimeter f4 PZG. The Alpha 1 now has the same 8-stop stabilization system that the Alpha 7 R5 has in it. So let's go ahead and turn it on. Okay, so this is standard stabilization, and I'm obviously hand holding it, but I'm not trying to hold it steady. This is at 16 millimeters on the 16 to 35 millimeter f4 PZG. So let's go ahead and switch it to active, which will result in a 10% crop, but you can see how that looks at 16 millimeter. Okay, so there's our 10% crop. And by the way, this is the internal microphone on the Alpha 1 Mark II. Now the Alpha 1 Mark II has a trick up its sleeve, bro. It can actually do dynamic stabilization like only the ZV-E1 can do. So let's turn that on. It does result in a 30% crop, but let's try it out. So now this is dynamic stabilization, 30% crop at 16 millimeter. It's mad freaking smooth. So having 8 stops of stabilization, just like on the Alpha 7 R5, means that in lower light you can get some really slow shutter speeds and still get sharp photos. And for video, obviously you can get some hyper smooth video without needing to use a gimbal. Is it perfect? No, but 5 stops to 8 stops, in my opinion, is a huge improvement. I loved it on the Alpha 7 R5, and it's the same on the Alpha 1 Mark II. All right, y'all, remember the intro how I said that the Alpha 1 Mark II was only an evolution? Well, that's what I meant. This is not some revolutionary new technology. Basically, what they did is they took the already amazing Alpha 1, which is one of the best cameras ever made, took all of Sony's latest and greatest technology when it comes to AI, image quality, autofocus, speed, all of that stuff, and dumped it all into the Alpha 1 Mark II, which now makes this one of the most powerful cameras out there. Is it perfect? No. My qualms, like I said, I wish they would have went with 8K 4K 60 internal RAW. I know I'm being snobby, but you think about spending $6,000 on a camera, you know, you want to be future-proofed and be able to compete with every camera out there, and I feel like that was a huge mismark with this camera. But other than that, it's really hard to argue with anything that this camera offers. For people who love the Alpha 9 Mark III, but the 24 megapixels wasn't enough, and they didn't really need all of the benefits of a global shutter, this is the camera for you. Of course, the original Alpha 1 is still gonna be on sale, so you can probably get one of those for like $4,000, but you know, if you need that top dog, if you want the latest and greatest that Sony has to offer, this is it right here. So let me know what y'all think about the new Alpha 1 Mark II down there in the comment section. I'm gonna be down there kicking it with y'all. I'm really curious to know your thoughts. Until next time, I'm out of here. Piece of chicken grease. Tight shirt Terry Warfield, I'm out. Peace.